World of Warcraft feels like it's dying right now. Now, is it actually dying? No, it's gonna be fine, probably. I mean, it's a 20-year-old game, so it's hard to really tell if the game's dying or not. But one thing that really feels off is this season is the first season of a new expansion, and nobody's playing. And yesterday, I was discussing this very topic on my podcast called the Warband. You should definitely check it up. It's a project that Chick and I have been working on lately, and we're so excited about it. But one of the topics that came up on the podcast was actually about dungeons, and specifically, why are dungeons not so fun right now? Like, what is going on? What is making dungeons fall apart? Can Blizzard fix this? Why are people not continuing to play the game when we have so much stuff happening? We have raid. We have 2 raids right now. We have 2 raids. We have dungeons. We have delves. We have an anniversary event going on. So why are we struggling? Why is WoW struggling to keep their player base? Well, I was honestly kind of suspicious that this might have been happening since the start of the War Within beta. I had this goal back when the beta launched for the War Within that I was going to play through the beta and make a bunch of tutorial videos on each dungeon. I made 2. I recorded footage. For all of them. However, at that point, when the expansion was launching, I was stepping into an extra busy season of my life and couldn't finish those videos. And so I put the 2 out that I had. But when I was making those videos, I realized something, I learned something, and I was afraid of something. I logged into the beta, I transferred my Death Knight over so it would have all its same talents and armor and everything, reworked the talent tree with the new talents that are available, and I went to town in the dungeons. And it was rough. It was so difficult. Listen, I know my Death Knight. I play Blood DK. That is my thing. I love tanking. Across the board, I love to tank. But I was dying nonstop. I could not complete these dungeons on my Blood DK. And I was like, am I using the wrong armor? Is something wrong? But nope. Lo and behold, the beta was scaling your armor. So that didn't even really matter. But it felt rough. And I remember being like, you know what, I'm gonna try a different class. And so I brought over my Brewmaster Monk and said, if I'm dying to a bunch of tank busters, I grab the spec that allows me to stagger away a lot of that damage that would have otherwise killed my DK in a one shot. And I was doing much better. It felt a lot easier. And then Blizzard did it. They went and made a tank nerf. All of a sudden, tanks could do less self-healing and were much more reliant upon healers to keep them alive. Also, tank busters were hitting pretty hard. And I remember looking at this and being like, Blizzard, what are you doing? Why? Why are you nerfing tanks right now? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This is weird. But I went with it, got all those dungeons done, recorded the footage, and then waited for the War Within to officially come out. Also, I'd like to point out, I made a tank tier list during beta, and I put Monk at the top because that was just how I was surviving dungeons, and people did not like that. So the War Within launches, and it's a lot of the same that I experienced on beta. Dungeons are definitely easier. Beta tuning is always wild. My DK is doing great. I'm loving dungeons right now. It is a blast, but I enjoy tanking. That is what I do. I got all my portals on my DK. That had me happy. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to that Brewmaster Monk and play him. And now my Brewmaster's doing pretty well too, and starting to work on a prot paladin to... I don't know, it's just fun. I enjoy doing dungeons, I enjoy tanking. But the truth is that most players do not enjoy tanking dungeons. And that's where the big problem lies. And I think it might actually, I really truly think this might be the reason why your friends aren't playing WoW anymore. This might be the reason why so many people are on break right now, playing other games or not doing dungeons, that the longevity of this season feels so short. It is the lack of tanks and the lack of healers that is causing such a wild problem in Mythic Plus dungeons. I fully believe that, and if Blizzard can fix that problem, they will have a much more robust and engaged player base than they currently do. And here's my evidence. Here's why I believe that. When I list a key on my tank, I will get like 20 to 30 DPS queuing up so fast, especially if it's a desirable key. Right away, they're queuing up. My list is packed with players. And that has to make me wonder, if for every one tank, we're getting 30 DPS queuing up to join that party, is that where the problem lies? Are players not able to get into dungeons if they're playing DPS? And because they can't get into dungeons and it takes 2 hours to find a key to do, it's just not worth doing it. You can't sit down, load up the game, and get into a dungeon. Well, maybe. But then if they can't get into dungeons, why don't they just switch to a spec that can, right? Why not play a tank? Why not play a healer? You'll get into groups way easier. Might as well do it, right? Unless it's not fun. The truth is that I'm probably not the best person to talk on this. I love tanking. It's what I do. I really enjoy tanking. So it's weird for me to say that tanking is not fun, but I would say for the majority of players in World of Warcraft, tanking is not fun. It's not a fun role to have. You have the responsibility of the tank itself, right? You can't die. You have to survive. You have to make sure you're pulling things together and holding aggro. And that gameplay, I do genuinely find fun. I think that gameplay is fun. I do think maybe it's a little too touchy right now. It's a little too easy for me to pull something and just die the moment I pull a couple mobs. The fact that I'm dying from like a bunch of insta white swings is kind of obnoxious, is annoying. I'm not gonna lie, it's not my favorite. But there's also the social pressure that comes along with playing a tank. And the social pressure is pretty hard, and the social pressure is pretty intense. And so the more difficult you make the role of tanking, the more heavy that social pressure is going to become. And what I mean is that when you form a group as a tank, you are expected to lead that group. Every time I open up a stone vault, immediately one player in my group, whoever has hero, will look to me and they'll say, hey, tank, do you want to lust first boss or do you want to lust this hallway? Why am I picking? Why am I choosing that? You pick the class that has hero or bloodlust. I don't want to think about that. I don't want that to be my problem. However, it is because I'm the tank and I choose the routes. They want to make sure that they are using the best abilities they have for the best moments according to the route that I'm taking. So it actually makes sense why they would expect that from me. You can't remove the social pressure from a tank ultimately, but you can remove some of the pressures. There's a 15-second penalty for dying in a Mythic Plus dungeon. If you've got a mage in your group and they misstep and they stand in a swirly and they die, that's 15 seconds off the timer, plus whatever time it costs them to run back. Now, most likely, if it's just like your mage dying, you're probably pulling that next pack without them. Like, whatever. They'll get there in time. By the time they get there, they'll just jump into the fray. But if your tank dies, that's not just 15 seconds that you lose. That's 15 seconds for all 5 players. That means in total, you're probably losing like 75 seconds. Over a minute of time is lost, gone, just because your tank died. And that's not counting run back time. Because remember, if your tank's dead, everybody dies. That has to be run back time. Everybody has to regroup, get situated, check themselves, and then pull that next pack. All in all, you're probably getting close to 2-minute penalties every time a tank dies. Occasionally, that's not the case. However, most of the time it is. So you have this role that has massive social pressure on it. You have this role that has massive gameplay pressure on it and timer pressure on it. Those 3 things are happening, and it is making tanking not fun for most players. So in order to get more players to tank, we have to make tanking more fun and less punishing for your mistakes. Yes, of course, if your DPS dies, you're going to slow down. Things are going to happen. But if your tank dies, that's almost completely a toasted key at that point. Now, maybe you'll get 1 or 2 wipes in and you're fine, but it is different. There's a lot more pressure on your tank. And right now, there's a few things with tanking that just feel a little too odd. One of those being that we're more reliant on our healers than we have been historically. And that's not fun. It's not fun gameplay when you are so reliant on your healer to keep you alive. Now, I get it. That's the role of the healer. But in my mind, the healer should be topping people off, not trying to just simply keep them alive. And those are 2 very different things. Tanks are more fun when you are in almost full control of your survivability. Now, occasionally healers can come in and save you, or I can go pull this pack because this healer's doing this. Those things you have to take into account. But the game is designed right now where you're just pulling 1 pack at a time. You're trying to live and then go pull the next pack at a time. That is not fun. As a tank, it really should be, you want to look at the packs and go, how many can I pull without dying? How much can I handle? Right now, it's not much. Stone Vault was the example I used earlier for Bloodlust. But Stone Vault's another weird one too, where the first boss in Stone Vault actually requires your healer to handle the tank mechanic for you. And it is a very awkward experience. I've actually, admittedly, I've left a couple keys. So I have this weak aura that will warn the healer when it is time to dispel me. And then when I'm dispelled, it will show a bar on my screen. So I know I have the shield available for the tank buster to come through. And I've walked into dungeons, especially as a DK, I run out of defensives. I can't handle that mechanic all by myself. I'll walk into the key, and I'll go, hey, healer, I have a weak aura for you for this first boss. And if they go, nope, I'm not going to use it, I know what I'm doing, I walk out. I'm done. First of all, it takes me another 15 seconds to find a group. So that's not that hard for me to get another group. But also, I have been in too many groups where the healer goes, yep, I know how the mechanic works. I got it. No worries. And I walk in, and the moment I get the debuff on me, that the healer's supposed to wait before he dispels me on, the healer will dispel me immediately. Just boom, dispelled, wasted shield, and then I die. And you know what? When I die, it's not the healer who looks bad, it's me who looks bad. And that's important to keep in mind, because even though it's a team game, and we should all be taking responsibility for everything, nobody wants to tank if you're just dying and everybody's getting angry at you, right? One player dies on the boss. Oh, big whoop. We'll be fine. The tank dies on the boss. That's it. That's done. Over. That runs, especially if it's a tyrannical week and you're like 75% the way through that boss and the tank dies and the group wipes, that runs over. You're not going to time that key. Tanks need to be more self-sustaining. They need to be able to heal themselves better. Tanks also need to be able to kind of be more competitive with damage. I know, I get it. Healers don't love it when the tank out DPSs them on that one AoE pool, or there's that one boss fight where that tank is just perfect for that fight. But guess what? It makes tanking more fun. And if the tank is a little bit more competitive with their damage and that bothers you, well, guess what? You're still going to be getting into keys faster. Because ultimately the goal, what needs to happen is for every 3 DPS signing up for a key, you should have at least one tank signing up for the key. Not for every 30 DPS, one tank. I'm ranting. This whole video has just been a rant. The point being, though, Blizzard, what are you going to do about tanking? That is how you fix dungeons. That is the answer. If you want to fix dungeons, fix your tanks, fix your healers, and then the players will start playing again. People enjoy them. The dungeons actually aren't that terrible right now. They're not the worst. Now, for whatever reason, you keep trying to make everything hit harder, especially hit the tanks harder. Maybe back off that a little bit. But the reality is if you can make tanking more fun for more players, you win. And if you don't do that, players are going to continue to drop off like they are right now. They're going to continue to leave early in the season because they're not going to enjoy waiting for groups. I'll continue playing because I am a tank, and I get insta queues right now because there are no other tanks. And so I'll get invited to dungeons that I'm too low of an eye level for. I'll get invited to dungeons where I have no rating, and it doesn't matter because I'm a tank. But if you really want the game to do better, I'm willing to sacrifice my insta queues if you can make tanking more fun for more players to join. Because ultimately, that's what's good for the game. Now, of course, if you disagree with me, if you think I'm wrong, I would love it for you to just leave a comment down below. Let me know, what do you think would save Mythic Plus Dungeons? What is the answer? And maybe, if I like your conversation piece enough, maybe I'll bring it into the next episode of the podcast as we continue this conversation and this discussion. And of course, a big thank you to Zygor for supporting my content and helping me make these videos. If you ever want some extra help in World of Warcraft, Zygor is an incredible add-on that supports you through questing, through collecting, through gold making, and anything else you want to achieve in the game. And of course, you can get 20% off today using code SWAGLOCK. Use the link in the description below to learn more. Thank you for letting me be your guide to the World of Warcraft.